A lot of people around the world and some people in the West are trying to get the Western ideas, not the Western conservative ideas, but the Western liberal ideas to people around the world. And they tried to do a LGBTQ strike in Lebanon. I don't know if you saw the results, what happened there. This is what took place when they did a LGBTQ rally protesting in Lebanon. If we can just play this clip. It doesn't look like the people of the city were happy.
And so these guys, those guys were protesting for the LGBTQ.
They're protesting for the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
So, so they're not too happy about it. And then I saw this other clip, and then I'll come right to you. If you can play this other clip. This is a book that's being sold, LGBTQ book for children, has a section titled How to Argue with Muslims, right? How to Argue with Muslims. If you can click on this, go for it.
Muslims. And they want to be inclusive. How to argue with a Muslim. And this book is gay.
Wow.
How to argue with Muslims. Please, guys, get this out. Get this out for every single parent. I mean, this is not just a few books. This is a whole ideology being pushed on the children. And now they're told to argue with Muslims.
Wow.
You can stop it right there, Rob. Why are they doing this, Liz? Why is this happening?
It's a religious belief for them. It's an ideology. The term inclusion or the term tolerance is never something that they wanted. They never wanted just the right to be able to live with whoever they wanted or love whoever they wanted or even marry whoever they wanted. They've always wanted to force this ideology on us. There was a story out of California from last week where a student out there was suspended from school for 5 days for quote unquote misgendering. And I mean, that's not an isolated incident, but it does make it pretty clear that they weren't just the ideology of the LGBTQIA lobby is not just, oh, let us live our lives, make sure that we're safe and not persecuted, that they want to force other people, especially Christians or religious people, Muslims, they want to force people to embrace that and celebrate that. Otherwise, they're going to be socially ostracized.
You know why a part of this I like is 74% of Muslims vote Democrat, till today, which doesn't make sense to me on why they do, but they do. It's content like this that if the left is watching, just so they know, the Muslims are watching. We have a Muslim community that watches the podcast to know they're targeting your community, your denomination, your religion. They're targeting you now to explain how to do that. It's shameless at this point. Not only are they trying to go to Muslim countries to bring that ideology to their kids, at the same time they're putting in the books. And it's more things to be thinking about to reconsider what way you vote your leaders. Because the right is not sitting there saying, let's indoctrinate your kids. At least if there's one thing like, I remember the tipping point when Joe Rogan and Elon Musk were sitting there saying, you know what, if you want to save the country, vote Republican. I just finished Musk's book that just came out, and there's a chapter where he talks about that time. I don't know if you're there yet, where he talks about, there's a part where he talks about, you got to, if you want to save the country, vote Republican. Musk has been a left his entire life. I mean, his whole thinking has been about saving the environment. But now those policies, a lot of people that were on the left who have kids going to school going through this, they're experiencing it. Tom, what do you think about when you see a story like this? Well, both Lebanon and what they're putting in books on how to argue with Muslims.
Well, Lebanon, it just goes to show you that when you have a homogeneous, in other words, vastly similar, culture and crowd, when you come in with just a lightning rod issue like this that is so diametrically opposed, I mean, the majority, let's just say 1 to 10, the majority of the country over there is like about an 8 in their agreement and in their intensity. And you come in here like a 3, I'll translate the what were they speaking there? Arabic?
Arabic.
I'll translate the Arabic for you. Get out of here before I bloody your other eye. It's basically, or before I take your head off. So you
I had no idea you spoke Arabic. That's pretty impressive.
pretty
I'm
first
pretty
time
sure,
I found it.
But I think my translation is pretty close. So on the first hand is you're kind of crazy whether if you were Jewish or you were Christian or you were Mormon, that to come in and to do something so, ostracizing on one side like that. You cannot expect that. It's almost like he's set in there to be a sacrificial lamb so that they can get the B-roll. Oh, this LGBT person is being persecuted in some other country. It's almost like it's a triggering effect. And then the book, I don't think they understand what they're dealing with. If they thought that the Glendale moms, those brave heroes, I call them, the Armenian moms that were peacefully protesting, and then it got really big at the schools in Glendale, if they thought that was bad, then show up in a real Muslim community with that book and wait what happens. Because they'll come out of the woodwork. Muslims are not good with LGBTQ. They'll take you to a tall building and teach you to base jump.
Which is... You want to go first?
Well, I was just going to say, too, the hypocrisy of it. Liz, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen it. These books that they're pushing on the children, they won't even let fathers, like that gentleman in Texas, read the book out loud at a school board meeting because they're like, this is inappropriate. Think of the hypocrisy, Pat, of...
Oh, do you have that video? Can you play that? Find that video. We watched it yesterday.
Think about that.
The pastor.
The kids couldn't read it and digest this and live that life. But a grown man in front of all grown people, no children in there, he couldn't read the words that you're pushing on the kids. And like, it's supposed, like, I don't understand the ideology around, like, how that's normal. The kids could read it and digest it, but we can't hear it out loud in public. That's
he's at a school board meeting saying, are we sure about this? Let me read it.
Yeah,
are we sure?
One of the books was called Flamer, and the other one was called Who Wants My Hot Wiener? It's like, when are we going to stop pretending?
Is it really called Who Wants My Hot?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm not joking, Pat.
The book is called Who Wants My Hot Wiener?
I'm looking at it right now.
What part of that book is like appropriate?
Hold on. I'm telling you right now. Which your character asks, who wants my wiener? It's in the book Flamer. The novel is called Flamer, and inside he goes,
what's his name? What's the pastor's name?
The pastor's name, I don't know, it's a Texas school board meeting.
So what's really interesting while you're finding that, what's really interesting about that book is I talk about that book in my book because Randy Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers, they partner with a book company that promotes that book in children's schools across the country. So this is not an isolated incident. This is something that's being promoted from the top down, which you don't even have to be conservative as a parent to not want your child indoctrinated with that.
And listen, he asked this question, like, I go in because I want to know the actual reason why. Is it because, and all these elites are always preaching about overpopulation? Is it because all those kids, that whole community, aren't having any children? And that's just another method of us not having more people walking around sucking up all these natural resources. Bill Gates has always said the biggest problem to our humanity is overpopulation. And why not have a whole generation of people that don't want to have kids?
You want to play this clip real quick, and then Adam come to you. Go for it.
This book here, it's called It's Perfectly Normal for Students 10 and Up. This book details all kinds of sexual images, pictures of elderly people nude, pictures of an individual who's in a wheelchair with his out. All of these sexual graphic images are made available and placed at the fingertips of children. This is immoral and asinine to allow children to be able to see this.
It's not this one. Pause this one. Play the one I just texted you. It's not this one.
Because the next one, Pat, he's reading it.
Yeah,
and
it's the one I just texted you.
Do they kick him out, Pat?
No, they you have to stop.
Yeah,
you have to stop.
Don't talk.
You have to stop.
They're offended by the content that they're reading to your kindergartner.
Yeah, exactly.
I just texted it to you if you want to find it. But go ahead, Adam, until he finds it.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's two separate issues going on right here. Number one, the LGBTQ plus pi, sign, all the good stuff. The alphabet mafia, as they call it. It's a very distinct group of individuals. Like, personally, as a straight guy, often I growing up in Miami and South Beach, huge gay community. I have gay friends. I would always joke with them like, hey, you guys do your thing. More chicks for me. Hey. But I will say there's a major difference between the L, the G, the B. Then there's the T.
Yeah.
So someone's sexual orientation, gay, straight, in America, I don't think that's any of our business. Now, when they start getting involved in the kids, or when you're starting to get into hormone blockers or pre-puberty blockers, and the T specifically, that's the biggest question. I think we've made major inroads to accepting gays in America, and the problem that I see in this Lebanese video is that they're condoning violence, which is basically hate crimes against someone different from you. And Tom made up a good point. All right, where do you draw the line? All right, so you're Jewish. All right, we know what's happened to them. Christians, we know what's happened to them in the Middle East. Where does the line stop? You know, the famous poem, first they came for the gypsies. I wasn't a gypsy, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Jews. I didn't say anything. Then they came for the Ukrainians.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then they came for me.
The silent
and
German citizen.
No one was there to say anything. So as much as I'm like, hey, I understand the agenda that's going on here, specifically in the T community. What is a man? What is a woman? Well, it's been pretty freaking clear forever, but that's being different. But gay people have been around forever. Lesbians have been around forever. So it's a little disconcerting to see what's going on specifically in Lebanon. Final point, you know, it's kind of like the Lebanese versus the lesbians. We all know that the Middle East, I think Lebanon is the angriest country in the world.
Yep.
Literally. Turkey's number 2, and then Armenia is number 3. Shout out to the Middle East. But going deeper in Lebanon, like if you want to go, you know, the C word, you know, that whole word, that there's a bigger issue at play here. Because just like, you know, America gets criticized for having regime change or trying to topple regimes or indoctrinate our values into the Eastern world. We're not doing that in Lebanon. They're doing their thing. They you know, they're called the Paris of the Middle East, but they do have a major faction in their country that is run by extremists, which is known as Hezbollah. So the culture wars that's happening there, some say that there's a major, they've been trying to elect a president for a year. There's political headwinds going on. There's economic major crisis going on. And some say that the people of power, especially the right-wing extremists, are using this attack on the LGBT community to basically divert attention from the real problems that are going on.
And that situation right there, obviously, nobody here obviously condones any type of violence with anything. If you're gay, nobody cares. But notice, Adam, look at how crazy that we've gotten right now. That attitude there, which I'm not condoning, but you know what that's called? Nipping it in the bud. Because once that starts, then it's the schools and the books and the kids and guess what's not going to happen over there.
By the way, that's a regular Tuesday. I lived in Iran 10 years. Like,
yeah,
that's
all the time.
That's and FYI, there's a reason. When I asked the question, I said, why do Muslims move to Christian countries to raise their families, but Christians don't move to Muslim countries to raise their families? That's a question that we had on the debate here. Very valid question, and that's one of the reasons, okay?
Well, because...
But I will tell you, one of the parts that you don't have to worry about where they stand, they don't compromise what they stand for. They're straight up, this is us.
Yep.
You don't like it, you can take me to jail, you can do this, you can do that. I'm not sitting for something like this. I want you to watch this video. Play this clip real quick. Because this is the one.
It's called It's Perfectly Normal. I'll read some of this for you. It says, after a bit, a person's
right?
becomes moist and slippery, and the clitoris becoms hard. After a bit, a person's becomes erect, stiff, and larger. Sometimes a bit of clear fluid that may contain two sperm comes out of the tip of the penis and makes it wet.
Can we, sir, I'm sorry.
Was it something I said? If you don't want to hear it in the school board meeting, why should children be able to check it out of the school system? But you don't want me to read it. Why? Does it bother you? Yes or no? You can't answer that question. You want to know why? Because politically speaking, you can't say that it's wrong. And you don't want me to read the filth because it exposes the truth. How dare you tell me to stop reading it? If you don't want to hear it, why should the children have to see it?
Pastor, your time is up. Thank you.
Oh, man, I love that guy.
Thank you, Jesus!
This is why Liz's book is so important, because it is all about the kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, my biggest thing with the alphabet mafia, specifically the T stuff, is two things. It's stay away from the kids and stop grown-ass men being in women's sports. I don't think that's too hard to ask. You have a child.
I do.
And I know that's a major concern of yours. But once someone's 18, they can make their own decisions.
I mean, to a certain extent, I would probably argue that that's medical malpractice, since it's not treating. You can identify however you want. You can't force other people to.
I'm not saying identifying.
I want to comment on the Lebanon video. I want to comment on the Lebanon video for a second, because there's a reason that that's going viral in the United States on social media. It's because that doesn't often happen here in the United States as the LGBTQIA lobby. And I understand your argument separating the two, but for all intents and purposes, gay people and lesbians and bisexual people have not disconnected themselves from this lobby. You can argue that the transgender lobby has latched on to what they have accomplished, but they haven't severed that and said, hey, we're going to be separate except for the what are they called? TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists.
Yeah.
Who are
Never even heard that.
Who are like the lesbians that are like, wait a second, all of our women's rights are erased if there's transgender stuff. But the reason that video from Lebanon went viral here in the United States is because that's actually very uncommon. And the other side, the LGBTQIA lobby, wants us to think of any criticism or any parental objection to the graphic stuff being taught to our children. They want us to think that that leads immediately to violence. But let me tell you about one of the things that I had to read in the course of researching this book. This was the most disturbing thing I ever read. And we all work in the news. We read disturbing things all the time. I read the founding document of queer theory, which is just like we learned a couple years ago that when black children are told they're oppressed and white children are told they're racist, we realized, oh, that's the principles of critical race theory, right? We saw what was being taught before we recognized what its origin was. Well, the same with the transgender ideology, this stuff about gender being a spectrum, being disconnected from biological sex, that you are what you identify. That's not just a random assortment of nonsense. Those are the principles of queer theory. It's also a neo-Marxist theory like critical race theory. So when I'm writing about this, I thought, well, I should read the founding document. I should read the source documents to see what they believe, what they want to happen, what they want to teach children, what their goal is with this theory, because this has become so prevalent in the last really 8 years since 2015. So I pull up this document. It was written by a woman named Gail Rubin. She's alive and well in our country today. She founded some lesbian bondage clubs in San Francisco, but she's in academia now. She wrote an essay called Thinking Sex, which, like I said, is the founding document of queer theory. And in this document, she not only lays out these principles that gender is a spectrum, that you can be a boy if you want to be a boy. She actively defends child pornography. She defends outright pedophilia and tells people that we as a society, yeah, there it is, Thinking Sex, that we as a society will regret imprisoning the, quote, men who love underage boys, pedophiles, within 20 years. And men who love underage youth, and advocates for the sexualization of children. So what we're seeing in the school classrooms when we see these graphic books, this is their goal. It's not inclusion. It's not tolerance. It's not, oh, your sexual orientation doesn't define who you are. You're much more than what you're sexually attracted to. This is their ultimate goal. And if we don't listen to what they say and believe them, then our children are going to be...
Liz, thank you for pointing this out. I had Rob real quick just find a picture of her / that guy. So that's a her? What is that?
Yeah, she's a lesbian.
Woman.
Yeah, that's a woman. Gail Rubin.
Is this a born
Can we see
female,
some other
or is this
images
a
of this?
male that's
Why does that picture look like she
she's
works
female.
at McDonald's? Go back to that picture.
With the vest?
Yeah.
Blue shirt?
Does it not look like
Yeah.
she's at a fast food restaurant?
I mean, if you didn't tell me straight up that was a woman, there's a high likelihood I think that was just a fat, ugly dude. Sorry.
And she's not even transgender, to my knowledge. I mean, go back to the Thinking Sex
She's
essay and look up
74 years old. So
look up what they say about child pornography.
Yeah.
February 1977, shortly after the Dade County vote, a sudden concern with child pornography swept the national media in May. Chicago Tribune ran a lurid 4-day series with 3-inch headlines. Rob, if you're on it, I actually can't read it. Yeah, 3-inch headlines which claim to expose a national vice range organized to lure young boys into prostitution, pornography. Which section do you want us to read?
It's a little bit further down.
Go a little down.
She excuses this. She makes it seem like that this is a witch hunt against people that possess this, so that's their First Amendment right to possess images that depict the sexual abuse of toddlers and children.
The laws produced by the child porn pandemic are ill-conceived and misdirected.
Well, just to be clear, Liz, because I want to...
They represent far-reaching alterations in the regulation of sexual behavior and abrogate important civil liberties.
Like you have the right...
Civil liberty to possess child pornography?
Hardly anyone noticed as they swept through Congress and state legislatures, with the exception of the North American Man-Boy Love Association,
Which, by the way, is a pedophile. It's a lobbyist for pedophile.
Pedophilia, or it's not. They don't call them that anymore. It's minor attracted person.
That's just their way of sanitizing. But isn't this shocking to you?
This is absurd. This should be illegal. This is disgusting. All iterations of that. You saw Sound of Silence, I assume?
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom?
Yes.
Okay.
Sound of Silence Part 2.
I was like,
Sorry.
no, I didn't. What is that?
Silence of the Lambs.
We're going to go back to Simon and Garfunkel.
Sound of Freedom.
Hello, Silence,
Which,
my old friend.
You know,
Hello, Clarice.
was a
Hard
very
to watch.
impactful
I've
movie,
come to
very hard
hump
to
you
watch.
again.
I don't think, other than these actual freak shows, nobody's advocating for anything with minors. I actually just found out recently because of Russell Brand that, do you know the average age of consent in the United States? It's actually 16 in 35 states. I had no idea, okay? Because he was accused of doing something
That
with
was
a
in the
minor.
UK that he was accused.
Correct. So I went down the rabbit hole and I said, is 16 illegal? It's actually not in the UK. Now, I'm not trying to hang out with high school girls, but in most states, it actually is 16 in the United States.
Right, but that's not what they're talking about here.
I'm fully endorsing that.
The books that that
Look at
guy
that.
was reading from, those people are academically and ideologically in alignment with queer theory. It's not just, oh, this is some freak show paper that I pulled from some random academic. If you look on her Wikipedia page, she is credited as writing the founding document of queer theory. That's what this is. She's like the Kimberly Crenshaw or Derek Bell of critical race theory. Like, she's the origin of it.
You know, the thing that you said, hey, I watched them beat these guys up, and then boom. What was the quote that you were saying? And Tom kind of finished the quote with you.
First they
Ukrainians.
came for
blah, blah,
the
blah.
gypsies,
Okay.
then they came for the Jews.
What about coming
Actually,
for the children?
that quote applies to what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
What she's saying is, you're like, give me a break. It's just they're gay. It's just they leave them alone. What's the big deal? And da-da-da-da-da. And then all of a sudden you get married and you have kids and your 3-year-old kid comes home one day from school and she's like, wait a minute. No, I'm putting my foot down. And then it's too late. So the part that the people who are experiencing this pain the most, and I want to go to the next story, but I want to say final thoughts here before we go to the next story. We're going to get a chance at the end as well for you to kind of tell us more about the book. I wanted to start off with the story. And Rob, let's put the link below for people that want to buy her book. You can go pick up her book. The link will be in the description. Here's what I was thinking about the other day. When you watch strikes, who typically strikes? You see the workers, right? Union workers, United Auto Workers go on a strike. Writers Guild, go on a strike. Actors go on a strike. Right? All these workers going on a strike. When have you seen parents go on a strike? I don't understand this. I'm telling you, I have a suggestion, parents. I'm going to keep talking about this until somebody takes the lead on this and screams it off the top of their lungs, and then they do it. I would love to see a 1-month parent strikes 1 million kids in America for one straight month.
Pull them out of public school?
Pull them out of public school for 1 month.
That. Yeah.
And what I would do is, out of those million kids that are being taken out, find out how many of those kids' parents are teachers, okay, where parents can actually teach a certain course, Zoom. So what you need to do is 1 million divided by what? Let's just say it's 1 million divided by how many kids per Zoom? How many Zooms can we have per classroom?
They do group homeschoolings, like 15 or so, when it's like you teach politics to 15 homeschoolers.
So let's just say 20, okay?
Yeah, good
so
number.
1,020,000, it's what, 5,000? Is that how many we need? Is it 5,000 or 50,000? We need 50,000, right? So if you got 20, you got 50,000 parents, 20 to 1. If you got 50,000 parents that say, I'll teach a class for 1 month, no problem. Why don't we do that? Okay, you take 1 month of your salary, say $4,000 a month, $6,000 a month, $5,000 a month, no problem. We'll fund it. You go take 1 month off. Parents, if you're that upset about this, why don't you take a 1 month strike? Okay, flip it on everybody else. It's constantly the workers going on a strike. How about for once customers going on a strike? And here the customer is who? The parent.
Yep.
Parents taking their kids to school is a customer. Okay, parents, why don't we go on a 1 month strike?
In a sense, a lot of parents have been doing that. I mean, the number of homeschoolers in the last 3 years have tripled. There's 5 million homeschoolers compared to.
But you're talking about like a month movement,
No.
like a child pride
Yeah.
month, where everybody we shut it down.
But what the homeschoolers are doing is they're making a choice to protect their families. They're not doing a rally cry for others to join a strike type of a thing. To do a strike, it's got to be a unified group coming together saying, guys, for the month of November, we're taking 1 month. We're taking our kids out of school for 1 month, okay? And come join our homeschooling, come do something like this. 1 month, let's get out. Let's show America how united we are, and then let's bring the governors of those states to a place, a hearing. No, you have to listen to what's in the book. No, you have to hear what's going on. No, we are not putting them back in school until you change it. No problem. Hey, you know what you did, government? Here's the biggest mistake the government did. And by the way, let me tell you why I believe this is possible. Do you remember when companies like Twitter came out and they said, well, at Twitter, we have made a decision. You can work from home for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, shit, that's guy's terrible idea. I just say that. You should have never said that. Please come back. Well, you said we can work
4 days a week.
So what happened was what COVID did, the best thing COVID did, COVID taught parents, we can actually homeschool.
Yeah.
COVID was actually terrible for public schools to realize, holy shit, if these parents realize they don't need us, we're going to be in deep trouble. Yeah. Well, guess what, parents? You don't. Why don't we do a 1 million kid strike, okay? 1 million kid strike for 30 days and then let them feel the pain. Then they have to adjust. Schools are going to be like, wait a minute, where the hell are these kids? We can't be doing something like we're not hitting our numbers, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. And by the way, well, what if it hurts their GPA? What if it hurts this? What if it hurts that? At this point of the game, quite frankly, as if going to college was the same value it was 30 years ago. The same thing they were teaching 30 years ago is the same thing they're teaching today. If you ain't doing STEM anyways, why do you care about it? Let's really disrupt the educational system. Unless if your kids are not going to become a doctor, a lawyer, a engineer, this, that, forget about it. Let's do this. Let's get them to realize you're in charge, the people, and let's get some movement going.
If you really want to save it, you have to get your hands dirty because think about it. If you can't read the book out loud at a school board meeting, or you can't go to a school board meeting without the FBI labeling you a domestic terrorist, I say this all the time. It's time to fight fire with fire. We got to get dirty. Get dirty.
Here's the thing. We have to have an objective, though, if we do this. It can't just be a protest. There has to be a concrete change that we're able to articulate that we want to happen in the schools, or else it'll just very quickly fall back. And let me tell you this. This was so interesting. So public schooling in our country wasn't even mandatory until 1852, which isn't that long ago. And the reason it became mandatory, Massachusetts was the first state to make it mandatory, and it became mandatory because there was an influx of immigrants to our country at the time, particularly Catholic immigrants, and the Protestant politicians in charge of Massachusetts wanted to indoctrinate these immigrant children in American values so they'd be loyal to America first rather than the country of their birth. And they wanted to indoctrinate them in Protestant values because of the centuries-long battle between Protestants and Catholics. And I was researching this as part of my book, and I realized, well, our education system actually is intended to be an indoctrination center. We think of indoctrination negatively just because of what the left is indoctrinating, but it's actually a very nebulous, morally neutral concept. It depends on what's being indoctrinated. But sometime between when it became compulsory and now, Republicans lost sight of that and started treating it as this neutral institution where we just teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. I would argue that when you have children under your care for 8 hours a day, there's no way that you can just interact in a value-neutral way. You are going to be imparting some kind of values, and if we are going to do something like a million parent or a million child strike, we have to call for fundamental changes to the education system, which means taking it back to teaching American values and Judeo-Christian morals. Otherwise, if our values aren't predominant in this institution, the Democrats' values are going to be.
We wouldn't tell people to take a strike for the hell of it. Obviously, there would be an agenda behind doing something like that. But what I'm saying is, for us to realize what things we have in common right now, one is our conservative values that have disappeared, okay? We're afraid of prayer for whatever reason, but we're not afraid of LGBTQ stuff being taught in school. Very confusing for me. And when it comes down to certain things that's being taught right now, if we can unify around three things, someone needs to take the lead, make a website, write down 5 things we're demanding and asking to change, go on a 1-month strike, get people to volunteer. Let's pick the dates on when it's going to happen. Let people feel the pain. If we are supporting unions going on strike and destroying businesses, great. Why don't we do the same thing to you? The biggest union in America is Teachers Union. Yep. The biggest union in America is Teachers Union. Let's let them feel the pain a little bit.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.